What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Storytime with the Anthony KT. Welcome. So previously on last week's episode of Storytime with the Anthony KT, we did a little. I decided to do a little detour from the unexpected, which is something we will come back to next week. But I wanted to do a detour to do a little reading from two of my books, which are available now on BarnesandNoble.com and on Amazon. The first one was In the Dark, The Summer Rise, a story that takes place in 1968, April 4th. 1968, the same day as Martin Luther King's assassination, and the lives of 6 people change forever. What happens in a single 24 hours of an event of 24 hours. There's some backstory. I go through 3 decades of backstory that leads up to this moment, this single day on April 4th, 1968 in Los Angeles, California. So In the Dark, The Summer Rise, BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon. It's available now. Go ahead and check it out. And this week, the final part of my detour for Storytime with the Anthony KT is a walk through London. It's available. It's also available now on BarnesandNoble.com and on Amazon. It's a love story. It's a novel, which when I finished writing it, I did not expect it to be a novel, but I am pleasantly surprised with myself and very proud of myself that I ended up writing a novel. But a walk through London story that the timeline of this story is 2019. The majority of the story takes place in London. It's a story about a writer named James from Santa Rosa, California, who goes through a bad ending of a breakup when he catches his girlfriend cheating on him, through depression and sadness. He has a very close best friend. Her name is Jennifer. She tells him that you should take a trip, take a vacation. He thinks about it, locks himself in his room while watching countless classic episodes from the WWE network of Raw and SmackDown, and then ends up watching an episode of while watching an actual episode on Fox of Friday Night SmackDown, when and has a moment where I'm stepping away from the whole thing, but it's part of it, that he kind of has this moment where he has a little bit of he has this idea of packing his bag and just going, taking his friend's idea and just going, not knowing where he's going to go, but he just goes. After watching SmackDown, he falls asleep, wakes up the next morning, packs a bag, grabs his passport just in case, heads to the airport, and the first trip that is available out of town is connected with SFO, from SFO, San Francisco International Airport, all the way to London. And that's where he ends up, where he eventually meets Sophia at a restaurant called Radio Rooftop, which is an actual restaurant in London. And he meets, bumps into Sophia, who recently went through a tragic ending in her relationship. Anyway, so that is a walk through London. That's quite a bit about a walk through London, without really spoiling it. But it is a love story. It's a novel, which I'm very proud of myself that I actually ended up writing a novel. But I'm going to read you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you I'm going to just read you a little bit from the first chapter. And the first chapter is called James. And let's just go right into it. It was a normal Monday night in Santa Rosa, California for James McWilliams. Monday night at 8 o'clock, James was relaxing on his couch in his living room, watching his favorite television program, Monday Night Raw. Raw is a pro wrestling program by World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE. James has been a pro wrestling fan since the late 1980s, when he saw Hulk Hogan and Macho Man. Ooh, yeah. I had to do it. Macho Man and Randy Savage team up for the first time as the Mega Powers, the handshake in that episode of Saturday Night Live where Hogan is like this. It was crazy. It was cool. It was dramatic, cinematic, all that good stuff. Anyway, on an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event at his friend's house during a birthday party sleepover. To James, as a kid, the pro wrestlers he saw that night were real-life superheroes and villains, and he instantly fell in love with it, and has been a pro wrestling fan since that day. Sitting on the couch with James was his girlfriend for the last 6 months. I apologize. I meant months, not years. James Payne. Lisa and James met at a mutual friend's barbecue party. James had a beer in his hand and chatting with a few friends by the pool when Lisa walked up to James and introduced himself. Lisa was the type of woman that whatever she sees, she goes for it with no regrets. When Lisa saw James, she saw someone that was handsome and someone she wanted. Lisa introduced herself to James. When James saw Lisa, a beautiful woman with brown hair, brown eyes, and a body that looked like Jessica Alba, walk up to him, he introduced himself. It mattered. It mattered what James was doing before she. It didn't matter what James was doing before she walked up to him. Lisa had James' attention. James suggested they go and find a more quieter place to talk. James was the kind of guy you wanted to hang out with. James always knew how to make anyone around him laugh. He had that glow surrounding him. This positive vibe about him that made you want to be near him. James, the type of person that never judges someone, but gives everyone a chance to be themselves. James wasn't just a positive guy and a pro wrestling fan. He was a writer who independently wrote fiction and children's books. A number of his children's books always had a bit of actual events happening in the background, being from recent or past history. James always felt adding real-life events into his stories always added some realism to his characters. With his children's books, he wrote stories about his life when he was a child, and he wrote about different types of animals and historical events. Not too long ago, James wrote a children's book about a dog fighting for his civil rights. In reading that book, it taught children about the civil rights movement. With a dog named Rosa Parks, a lion named Apollo X, and a giraffe named Maverick the King, Lisa found what James did interesting. She saw it as him being able to reach millions of people around the world with his words, be it for adults or children. It was one of the many things that was attracting Lisa to James. The more she learned about him as they were sitting on the couch in the living room of the mutual friend's house after the conversation they had at the barbecue, Lisa made the next move in asking James out on a date. James didn't need to think about it. He was enjoying the conversation with Lisa. He was attracted to Lisa. He knew he wanted to see her again. He said yes. And that's a little from A Walk Through London. Just gave you a little bit of the first chapter, really how James and Lisa first met. Eventually they break up because she ends up cheating on him. But I will let you to read that yourself and figure out this crazy adventure, this great love story for James. A Walk Through London, available now, BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon. Yeah, and that's it. that'll do it for Story Time with the Anthony KT on this episode. Next week, when I come back with a new episode, next Monday, when I come back with a new episode, we will be back to the unexpected and find out what's next for Charles and Zoe for them. So that'll do it for now. In the meantime and in between time, peace, y'all.